How strong was Sosuke Aizen, the former captain of Squad 5, traitor to the Soul Society, the reformer who would remake the world, ruler over the Arankars, the master illusionist, and the one who would stand in heaven.
メノスとまで手を組んだのか。何のためにだ。高みを求めて地に落ちたか。アイゼン。おごりが過ぎるぞ、浮竹。最初から誰も天に立ってなどいない。君も僕も神すらも。だがその耐え難い天の座の空白も終わる。これからは私が天に立つ。
And there you have it, the GOAT has been introduced. Now, tempted as it might be, I will not be investigating Aizen's character in this video, as I will be talking about that in much details in the future. This video will cover Aizen's strength as a Shinigami, including some information on his Bankai. Just to be as thorough as possible, I will go over his physical abilities such as his physical strength and speed, intelligence feats, Kido, Shikai, Bankai, his Reiatsu, and his immortality. And yes, in a video that has nothing to do with transcendent Aizen, I will be covering immortality. But stick around and you will see why. Finally, I will cover his narrative strength in the story as well as the novels. And as I go through each of these categories, I'll make comparisons with other characters, just to give you all an idea of how Aizen compares to the rest of the verse. With 100. And his abilities were said to be far beyond all the Espada, which would include his immense speed. After Ichigo received multiple amps from fighting against the Espada in Hueco Mundo, the same Ichigo whose growth rate was compared to fighting hundreds of battles in a matter of hours in the Can't Fear Your Own World novel. According to Grimjow's memory and observation, this same Ichigo was casually evaded by Aizen. And when it was time for Aizen to approach Ichigo, he simply appeared in front of him with his hand on his chest, completely blitzing Ichigo's perception. And when Ichigo proceeded to attacking Aizen at close range, the latter simply evaded once more. This version of Ichigo had some mental shackles, which I'll explain in my upcoming video on him, but he is still far superior to his hollowified Bankai Hueco Mundo versions. And the fact that Aizen wasn't showing any effort means that he's casually far above this Ichigo in terms of speed, even above Ichigo's perception. In terms of durability, he was able to survive a chantless Hado number 96 Ito Kaso from Yamamoto, and afterwards his spirit body was still intact, albeit Yamamoto was injured. And after being caught completely off guard by a hollowified Bankai Ichigo, he withstood a Getsuga Tensho. And this came directly after Genryusai's Hado 96, and it still wasn't enough to kill him. Furthermore, due to the Hogyoku's will, in this state, Aizen also had the power to regenerate. And it's not that his body actually had the natural abilities to regenerate, but this was simply the Hogyoku's will. With a genius-level intellect and mastery over multiple intellectual fields, Aizen is massively intelligent. With all the Keikaku memes going around, I'm pretty sure everyone understands that Aizen is incredibly smart. But how smart exactly? I won't be able to cover all of Aizen's intelligence feats, but I will certainly list a ton of them just to show you how big this man's brain is, accompanied by statements about his intelligence as well. I'll divide this into knowledge, scientific intellect, strategic intellect, and psychological intelligence. As shown at the end of the battle with Ichigo, Aizen had knowledge of the universe before the Soul Society, the Living World, and Hueco Mundo came to be. And as further depicted in the Can't Fear Your Own World novel, he knew of the atrocities committed by the 5 noble ancestors. In that same novel, it was further revealed that Aizen referred to Ukitake as nor you, or I, or the gods, because he was aware that Ukitake actually contained Mimihagi, which he understood was a part of the Soul King, which was removed long ago. Even Kisuke Urahara admitted that he only knew about Mimihagi's name, and that it was some god worshipped on the outskirts of eastern Rukongai. He further showed visible surprise when the true identity of Mimihagi was revealed, something Aizen was aware of before the beginning of the series. This is not to say that he is more knowledgeable than Kisuke Urahara, but he knows things of which even Kisuke is not aware. He was aware of the existence of Fullbringers and the principles behind their powers since the beginning. He has demonstrated his understanding of Shinigami warfare and the nature of their spiritual powers. This same knowledge extends even to the Onmitsukido, and he was once a teacher in the Soul Society. In terms of scientific knowledge, he arrived at the idea to make a Hogyoku before Kisuke Urahara did, and because his Hogyoku was incomplete, he added Urahara's Hogyoku, which was also incomplete to his own. He was also able to figure out the true nature of the Hogyoku's powers before Kisuke Urahara. He created spirit energy detecting technology for Renji Abarai in order to allow him to locate Rukia's unique Gigai, and was able to discern the true location of the Hogyoku despite Urahara's attempt at hiding it. Over the years, Aizen created a multitude of hollows with various abilities. He quite literally studied all the details of Kisuke's research back in Soul Society, essentially adding that knowledge to his own. He created Kaha Negation, which seals a target in an alternate dimension, and the teleportation cloth used by Gen and Kaname to traverse space to a different location. The bracelet which Ulquiorra gave to Orihime to allow her to become intangible and phase through solid objects, as well as become undetectable to Shinigami's senses. Las Noches, which contains a false sky which still produces daylight. After observing the Soul Society for several hundred years, he came to the conclusion that only Kisuke Urahara's intellect surpasses his own. The same Kisuke who was noted to have 1,000, tens of thousands, or infinite ideas in the Can't Fear Your Own World novel. And yet, as noted before, Aizen was still a rival to Kisuke. One of Aizen's greatest weapons in combat is his ability to understand others and manipulate them. He manipulated Ichigo's battles and his life ever since he was born. He manipulated and chose Ichigo's opponents based on Ichigo's level of growth in the story. He manipulated the Soul Society for over 100 years, tricking their surveillance systems as well as the Great Spirit Book Gallery, which is able to record all the information across the Soul Society by force. He made Toshiro Hitsugaya think that Gin Ichimaru was responsible for its death, took over the Central 46 and controlled the entire Gotei 13. He was able to see through Shinji Hirako's personality in an instant and manipulated him into choosing him as his lieutenant. The same Shinji who has been described to be sharp and clever and to have a quick mind in the Can't Fear Your Own World novel. He has been shown to psychologically manipulate espadas like Luffy and Grimmjow repeatedly. Through mere suggestions, he was able to put Orihime in a multi-layered psychic cage. And because of how complex this mental manipulation was, Noitora thought that Aizen went through painstaking efforts to create this plan, but Ulquiorra revealed that to Aizen this was merely a game, merely child's play. He then used the same manipulation to lure half of the Gotei 13, including captains like Unohana and Mayuri, into Wako Mundo, and to also trap Kenpachi Zaraki in Wako Mundo, as Kenpachi could have been problematic if his powers were to be released. I'm aware that some of this actually falls into strategic intelligence, but unfortunately they're much too woven together. The data book also added that Aizen is a master of psychological warfare. His words can be used as weapons and that he can see through his opponent in an instant. He has been shown to completely lure characters to their demise by standing in one position and merely talking to them. Now I think you all get the gist of how smart he is, so in terms of strategic intelligence, I'll only list a few. So first of all, the entire Soul Society arc was essentially Aizen's strategy. The Wako Mundo arc was essentially his strategy. He found a way to seal off Yamamoto's powers using a modified Arrancar and then turned his own fire against them. So again, in terms of intelligence overall, as well as in other aspects, Aizen is a complete monster. I should also mention that Aizen was able to reverse all of his senses and perceptions that were affected by Shinji's power and was able to see through his ability. With Reiatsu manipulation and Kido expertise at 100, Aizen is the Kido master. He created a Kido barrier known as Un Millón Escudo, which is able to expand and protect the back of his neck if he's taken by surprise from behind. He's been shown to use Hado number 90, Kurohitsugi, without incantation, although it wasn't at full power, and could also summon a massive Hado number 63, Raikoho, without incantation. As a lieutenant, he was able to block a chantless Hado number 88, the Hiryu Gekizok Shinten Raiho, from Tesai Suka Bishi, the Kido commander, by using a Bakudo number 81, Danku, without incantation. After seeing this feat, Kisuke asked, what is he? Some of the other Kido spells that he should be able to use would include binding spells such as Rikujo Koro and Sajo Sabaku, which can restrain an opponent's physical and spiritual movements. Telekinesis, he can create seals, use elemental spiritual attacks such as fire and wind, and although in his Shinigami state he might have to repeat the incantations for this one, but he should also be able to use the Hado number 99, the Goryu Tenmetsu, which can draw its power from the environment and focus it. He can also use Bakudo number 58, a super underrated spell, which can be used to find the location of other characters. But the most intriguing thing about this spell, the Kakushitsu Jaku, is that it's able to trace characters even across separate dimensions. In the Can't Fear Your Own World novel, Mayuri Kurotsuchi, who was in the Soul Society, was able to trace the spiritual pressures of characters entering the Valley of Screams, which required him to reach beyond the Soul Society's dimensional realm and across a portion of the Garganta. Furthermore, Aizen can also use Kido to bend light and make himself invisible, as well as completely cloak his presence while moving around, and can also summon powerful barriers like the Kyomon, which can repel attacks from the outside. There are also other Kido barriers such as the Hakudan Keppei, which Nanao Issei, a less experienced Kido master than Aizen, was able to create. This barrier was able to absorb the spirit energy of the opponent, as well as physically hold back someone like Jugram Hashwald, who was physically stronger than Nanao Issei by far, and she was able to create a more advanced version of that barrier on the spot. So with Kido, he has energy projection, elemental attacks, binding, sealing, absorption and reflection barriers, cloaking, invisibility, cross-dimensional tracking, gravity manipulation. He can also create and modify his own spells, and so much more. Aizen's Zanpakuto is known as Kyoka Suigetsu. Its Shikai ability is known as Kanzen Saimin, or Perfect Hypnosis. Whoever sees the release of Aizen's Shikai will be caught in the hypnosis. And as long as you see it, even if you know it's coming, it's impossible to evade it. This ability disrupts their senses and allows Aizen to control their perception. In other words, the 5 senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, fall completely under his control. And as Aizen further elaborates, it is total hypnosis, which controls all 5 senses at all times, even simultaneously if he pleases. And once the target falls under hypnosis once, every time he releases Kyoka Suigetsu again, they will automatically fall under hypnosis again, even without him having to show them the release. This happened to the Visors even after 100 years. It was revealed in Can For Your Own World novel that the Kyoka Suigetsu is also able to control the perception of spirit energy and reiatsu. Even the perception of spirit energy and reiatsu in the inorganic substances in the environment can also be controlled. In other words, he can make you misinterpret the strength and position of his own reiatsu. He can also make the opponent misinterpret the amount of spiritual power that they're using, which can allow him to trick the opponent into weakening their attacks or their defense. The fact that Kyoka Suigetsu relies on sight in order to activate means that it doesn't work on blind people. But the true weakness is that the only way to escape Kyoka Suigetsu's power is to touch the blade before the complete hypnosis has been activated. Note that the blade has to be touched before it's activated. And as revealed in the Can For Your Own World novel, the moment you let go of the blade, he can put you in hypnosis. So the opponent has to keep holding on to the blade. And since Aizen controls the sense of touch, he can make the opponent experience endless pain whenever he desires. He could also control the sense of touch to the extent that the opponent can't feel his own body parts, or numb their sense of touch to the extent that they can't even feel their muscle contractions, which would prevent them from properly holding their weapons, as well as affect their physical strength and physical movement. All this and so much more. Now let's talk about Aizen's Bankai and why he should have one. In the Spirits Are Forever With You novel, it was revealed that every strong Bankai comes at a price, like Aizen not being able to use it if someone hasn't seen his Shikai. This was stated by the same author who wrote the Can For Your Own World novel, whom Kubo sensei praised for his incredible knowledge of Bleach lore when he was in the process of writing the Spirits Are Forever With You novel, and he had Kubo's permission to reveal all the secret informations in this novel, including things like Kenpachi's hidden strength, something which Narita himself was able to discover, much to Kubo sensei's surprise. This novel was also chronologically accurate and fit perfectly into the timeline of the story, and solved many mysteries in the story, such as Aizen's reason for locking Kenpachi in Wako Mundo, as well as Kenpachi's new eye patch. Additionally, the Kenpachis featured in that story as a Shiro and Kuriashiki were also featured in the 13 Blades character book in the same capacity as they were in the novel. Now, Kubo sensei might reveal Aizen's Bankai power in the Thousand Year Blood War arc, but for now, let's run with the information that we have here. So first of all, he has a strong Bankai, which indicates that it should function in the same capacity as other Bankais, especially given the fact that it is mirrored with Ichigo's Bankai in this scenario. And the Bankai should increase the combat ability of the Zanpakuto anywhere from 5 to 10 times. And since this is based on talent and training, given Aizen's insane talents with the spiritual arts, he'd most likely have a 10 times multiplier. After being released, the effects of a Bankai can also go beyond 10 times, as seen with Byakuya's Bankai, which has multiple stages of increased attack power. Aizen's Bankai and Shikai abilities would also be connected. Maybe he destroys the senses, or controls the mind, or turns his illusions into reality. Or perhaps he drags the opponent's mind into a mirror psychic dimension. But you must have seen the Shikai to fall under the Bankai's power. One aspect of Aizen's power which would make his Shikai and this hypothetical Bankai so effective is this insane Reiatsu. Perhaps Aizen negating Soifon's power was an illusion, But in reality, he should be able to negate her powers because of the insane difference in Reiatsu between the two of them. And it's not because every single ability in Bleach is Reiatsu based. I think that kind of reasoning is fallacious. Aizen can casually release the bare minimum 2 times captain level Reiatsu required to temporarily awaken the Hogyoku. With no effort, he brought Espada number 6 Grimjaw Jagajax to his knees with Reiatsu alone, stated that all the Espada's powers are inferior to his own. Even disregarding the Kyoka-Suigetsu, the Espadas obey him because he is strength itself. Ichigo, who can sense the hearts of others by clashing swords with them, stated that Aizen must have been born with exceptional powers. And Ichigo's words were confirmed by the data book to be true. Ichigo did sense Aizen's true feelings through his sword, which speaks for the immense power that brought about this loneliness. His intelligence can also be factored as a part of this power, as it helped him to bring down Yamamoto. Tokinada Tsuneyashiro, one of the 4 great nobles, who was stated to have spiritual pressure on par with Byakuya and Yoroichi, was said to be far beneath Shinigami Aizen. And despite having far weaker Reiatsu than Aizen, he was a complete terror to multiple captain class characters, including Arrancars and Foodbringers. Furthermore, it was stated that one could undo Tokinada's copy of Kyoka-Suigetsu by using spiritual pressure at Aizen's level, which again puts a huge gulf between Aizen and even the great nobles. The only characters whom Aizen expressed caution towards included Zaraki, whose suppressed strength could have been a problem before Aizen attained immortality, Genryu Yamamoto, who was above Aizen in terms of power, and despite all that, he was still cautious of the Kyoka-Suigetsu's ability, which can still work on characters who are above Aizen's power level. Ichigo Kurosaki, whom he thought could grow powerful enough to give him a good fight. The Zero Squad, as Aizen stated that he would first fuse with the Hogyoku and then bring down Royal Palace. And since he had revealed this Kyoka-Suigetsu's secret with Genichimaru, he was curious to see how the latter would try to kill him. Again, when you put all of Aizen's abilities together, he was seen as the embodiment of strength itself. And now for his immortality. After his battle against Ichigo, Aizen was in the process of losing his powers. This was further supported by the plot summary, which stated that the Hogyoku took back its powers from Aizen. So Aizen was actually reduced back to his Shinigami state, and it was in this state that he was declared to be immortal and unkillable. In the Can't For Your Own World novel, it was also confirmed that Aizen's immortality was as a result of the Hogyoku tampering with his soul. And because Aizen had this immortality even when he regressed to his Shinigami state, it can also be classified as a post-battle Shinigami condition. And of course, Aizen would evolve again for the 1000-Year Blood War arc, but being unkillable even when reduced back to a Shinigami state, as it is typical for the Soul Society to use their personnel for execution, as the own Mitsukido also specializes in execution, and Zaraki was sent to execute as a Shiro in the novel. Furthermore, in Can't For Your Own World, when Shuhei got angry at Aizen, Soifun simply told him that if someone like him could have killed Aizen, it would have been done already. And so it stands to reason that no one in the Gotei 13 could have executed Aizen, even when his power regressed to the Shinigami level, and despite stronger characters like Yamamoto possessing existence erasure. So how strong was ex-Captain Aizen? He was a freak of nature. Thank you all for watching, and as you can tell, this video took a lot of research, a lot of effort, so please be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. I have explanation videos for Transcendent Aizen and Ichigo coming very soon, and a hypothetical battle between Soul King Yuha and Composite Aizen. And of course, I'll be addressing the upcoming videos in the polls as promised. Cheers and peace out.